Dispatch 57A. Satellite. The moment that a ship breaks through from the long black into the Twilight Mirage is breathtaking. Every new arrival splits the difference between violence and creation. With the divine fleet licking its wounds, any unexpected change carries threat. But as we learned a long time ago, threat carries possibility. So, when the sable curvature of the HSS Mercury's kiss disturbed the pomegranate blots of Empyrean's false nebula, I knew things were about to get interesting. Which, Satellite, makes my job a whole lot more tolerable. But as I watched that ship hang in the clouds above the floating city of Seance, looking down on that impossible open-aired metropolis in the stars, I wondered for a moment if it might be okay that my tenure here be boring, that perhaps my desire for more active afternoons should come second to maintaining the long-lasting serenity of the Divine Fleet. But I have seen the projections, and the projections don't lie. They don't know how. A graveyard's architecture can be sublime, yes, and grieving can be joyous. But that doesn't change the fact that Seance is first and foremost a home for the dead. Dispatch 57B. How familiar are you with the fleet's assemblage, Satellite? When I came onto this position, I'd read the normal allotment of their holy texts. The orbit's alignment? Yeah. The key sections of amalgam? Of course. A few of the letters to the cadent in doubt? Maybe. A couple at least. But in the last couple of months, I've had a lot of time on my hands, Satellite, and I've gone digging deep into the assemblage. There's this small book of songs in there, a little thing. It's just called Lyrics and Accompaniment. I've read it, I've sung it front to back 12 times now. I'd never thought about it, Satellite, but there was a time before the fleet was at its full size of 300 divines. And each new one that joined the orbit, it got a hymn. 300 hymns. And then, when they started dying, well, it took a couple of dozen, but sooner than later, each dead divine got one too. And I've got the page open right here in front of me, Satellite. And it's still at 598. It's still at 598, and that's wrong. That's wrong because today, I sat in this box, and I watched a divine die. Report 80 Alpha. So, how you holding up, Primary? It's been, I guess, about a month since Gumption died, and Empyrean and Blooming, they've been watching the people in the fleet mourn the death of yet another divine, and I've been watching them. By definition, faith is supposed to be invisible. But the hope of the fleet has always been just really material. It's been right there, in their parades and their songs, in their tears and sweat, and their fists all clenched up after a wound. But with Gumption and Covenant gone, if their hope yet lived, I registered no material evidence. That's why they finally acted, Primary. For a long time, Empyrean has held one law to be true above all others. You know this. Steal no one's perch. While the other divines of the fleet had pursued and pretty much failed at colonization efforts, Empyrean and the people of Seance hadn't. Their domain was the sky, not the land. They were Empyrean, right? The highest of highs, the most heavenly of heavens, dreamt first by the divines themselves, quote unquote. But now the people needed a sign, They needed an investment in hope. And so suddenly, they started looking for a perch. I watched them scour the records of the Memorious Library. I watched them find a new home, or what looked like one anyway. A world of singing storms and howling seas, deserts and mountains, lakes and forests and swamps and ice. A planet with as much diversity as the citizens of the fleet. And I observed relief in Blooming's eyes when she found the loophole. Records indicated that on multiple occasions over the last 800 years, people had fled the fleet and wound up on that planet. Perhaps, I overheard her telling Empyrean, this wasn't someone else's perch at all. Before they vanished, the divine curiosity named that planet Quire. Do you know the word, Primary? Quire. Definition 1, a collection of 24 or sometimes 25 sheets of paper of the same size and quality. Sometimes 25. It's so very curiosity, isn't it? Definition 2, archaic, an organized group of church singers. Definition 3, a division of angels. Report 87. You ever think about time, Primary? About how fast things can change? The Divine Fleet started nearly 30,000 years ago. Can you imagine? 30,000 years. Real years, not like where we're from. All those lives back to back to back, connected by a taut string of continuity. From the first who studied under Kamala Cadence to those who walk the seraphic shores of Seance today, all of them, countless beings who never breathe the same air, but who each equally belongs to the same thing, to that fleet. And then, less than a millennia ago, a handful of those people left, and today their descendants. Quire hangs right in the middle of the Twilight Mirage, but most of the people on the planet, they don't even know what a divine is. Not really. But does that mean that they aren't part of that continuity? A few hundred years, and then that line is just snapped? I don't know, Primary. It's just, you think you know where you're from. You know who raised you. You remember your teachers. I can't forget my first deployment. But there's a larger story. We're all connected to things we don't know that we could never know. But in my mind, those things count too. Whether we want them to or not. Report 88. I'm getting worried, Primary. There's this little display box right over in the corner of my work grid. It shows the status of the team I'm watching, and it's been stuck on the same image ever since they reached Quire's surface. I can see them, eyes full of hope and concern and curiosity. One of them looks a little distracted. But the picture is supposed to be live by now, and it's not. Everyone's in the right place, and there's been more than enough time, so what's keeping them from throwing the switch? We were sent all this way, and with all this tech, and we can't even get a decent visual on Quire before the new arrivals set up their network. Sorry, it's just, what happens if they fail? I mean, I know we're not supposed to ask questions about mission-critical premises, but, well, this is more mission tangential, at least by my readings. What happens if they get hurt? Or captured? Or if if the node gets destroyed and then they can't fab up a new one? I gave up a stable existence for a chance at adventure, Primary. But it's just me and this capsule and this little picture in the corner of my work grid. And all I want to know is what happens if this picture of them never changes. Dispatch 92. You asked me a question last week, Satellite. You asked what it meant to be part of something larger than yourself. Let me ask you a question back. What does it mean when the thing you're a part of is so distant from everything else? Their culture, it's a fleet, right? It's always been a fleet. Not a commonwealth, not an empire, not a principality or a demarchy or a coalition of free states. The divine fleet, the resonant orbit. For 30,000 years, they define themselves through their devotion to beautiful, ceaseless flight. Their little utopia has always been built on the premise that the hundreds of millions who lived in it could continue with unbroken momentum to find their own pristine paths through the stars. There is real irony here, Satellite. It's easy to live a peaceful life away from others. Just ask any monk in a mountain or any woman alone in a floating box like me. But the fleet doesn't do that. It soars through the sky even as it is whittled down. And when you're always moving, when you make momentum not only your goal, but your very notion of the good, collisions are inevitable. Dispatch 93A. I'll tell you one thing, Satellite. Even now, even with so many of the divines gone, the fleet is really good at knowing how to take care of its own. So much of what they do is about understanding what people need and how to get it to them. But I have my doubts, Satellite, if they're any good at understanding people outside of the fleet. The assemblage has this book, Overcoming the Problem of Other Minds. It's kind of a slog, all about knowledge and selfhood and all of that. The first half is an epistemology textbook meets holy tract, but the second part, it turns, and suddenly it becomes a story, a sort of long-form fable. It's about this divine, or a stand-in for one anyway, who can't convince someone of his divinity. He tries over and over again to display his power, his knowledge, his technological superiority, but the would-be convert just shrugs. The lesson, as the fleet teaches it, is that there are people that you cannot teach, many who do not or will not understand. But they don't know what we do they, Satellite? We know that when someone shrugs at a display of power, at a display of knowledge, at a display of technological superiority, it is not because they do not understand. It is because they are not impressed. Dispatch 93B, Priority. Protocol code I, Choir, Touch, Mirage, Alpha, 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 Gamma. Sub-protocol, Bypass Unknown. Begin voice signature. Primary observer Damani Dusk. Authorized direct communication channel. Now entering linked broadcast quarantine. Connection with satellite observer. Cut. Connection with KNet wide. Cut. Connection with Mirage wide. Cut. Linking with K upside switchboard. Linked. Connection with REHQ established. Connection. Locked. Begin live transmission. Boss, they're here. And I don't think they're just coming for her this time. Transmission MP2. Mirage Primary, we have received your dispatch. Crystal Palace has been made aware of this inconsistency from guaranteed events. Official recommendation is to hold and continue surveillance. Under no circumstance should you engage on behalf of any subject involved in the matter. Divert 5% of observational budget to the cloud phenomena, both inside and outside the mesh. Beyond that, Crystal Palace defers to agent in field to identify most efficient allocation of operational resources. Message lock. Prepare for dispatch. Send on mark. 3, 2... Pause. Authorize allotment of personal communication time. Voice signature. Keen. Forrester. Gloaming. Diamond encryption. Record. Off the record. Damani, this is a clusterfuck. No one knows what that thing is. Your instruments didn't pick it up until this last report, but when we analyzed the data, it says that thing has been there since the day Gumption died. Some folks here think it's a ghost. Others think it's the killer, or both. My money's on neither. World don't work that way, too clean. But it ain't supposed to be there, and this wasn't supposed to be some adventurous assignment. You and my daughter both were supposed to have simple recon deployments. Watching the last years of a crumbling civilization. Important, but safe, predictable, guaranteed. Clouds. When people think of clouds, they think of rain. But a little water isn't the problem. The problem is that clouds block the light of day. On a cloudy afternoon in the field, you can't be sure where the sun is. And without the sun, you can't know for sure where you are, or how much longer you have until it's nighttime. So I get it. I get being scared. I hear it in your voice and I understand. But listen close, Damani. Clouds are burnt away by the same light they hide. And we are not some lost wanderers in the woods. We are agents of the rapid evening. We are the sun. Local recording 7. I'm waiting, satellite. It's all I'm allowed to do. Watch and wait. And the thing is, even if I wanted to do more, I'm not really sure it would matter. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. Intervention. In so many of the dead societies that I've studied, people get caught up on this debate about intervention. If something in these cultures is a threat, physical, environmental, political, they spend just so much time arguing whether or not to do something. It's so arrogant, and it totally misses the point. This one place, they built sort of a false sun, a special generator, a seemingly endless source of energy. It brought in a golden age, it really did. Billions of people had their lives improve. But one day, that new sun began to collapse inward on itself. Slowly. Slowly. And they started arguing. Should they send in teams to fix it and risk their lives? Should they shut down the project even after it helped so many? How much of the remaining energy could they sacrifice trying to fix this? By the time they started that debate, Satellite. Our agents had already reported back the truth. The second they'd built that device, they were doomed. They hadn't built a generator. They'd strapped their world to a time bomb. This is what separates us from cultures like theirs. We understand our limits. We know that sometimes there is no question of intervention. There is only an outcome prescribed by a mistake you may not even remember. People who think they know us say that the Rapid Evening is a group of self-appointed galactic police that we butt in when it isn't necessary. But the truth is way more depressing. It's rare that we intercede. Not because we're cautious, not because we're callous, because most of the time, it's already too late. We see disaster again and again and again and do nothing, because in so many cases, there is nothing to do but watch and wait. Signal route, gray. Mirage density, opaque. Proxy chain, linked. This better work. Primary? Satellite. Report 125. It's funny, Primary. It's been a month since we lost connection. And when I finally heard your voice again, my heart, well, the closest thing I have to one anyway, it didn't swell so much as it found a stable rhythm it had forgotten. Don't take this the wrong way, but now that the connection is back, it feels like I just don't have a lot to say. That doesn't mean I'm not happier with you there, though. I am. It's so good to know that when I speak, you'll hear me. And that group down there, they're kind of the same. They're all so different, and I haven't seen any of them get close to each other yet, not really. But I look at them and think, maybe connection isn't always about words or even about actions. It's about presence, the promise of presence. It's knowing that after you leave home, there will be someone there for you when you come back, someone with their own stories, their own life worth telling you about. This mirage is an assignment for us, Primary, and we're not supposed to get too attached, I know. But more and more, I'm starting to think of this place as home. Report 132. Are you familiar with the Treatise on Change, Primary? It's a small section of a larger text, something about the breaking through the limits of human cognition. It postulates that there's no such thing as change, at least not the way we normally talk about it. The writer, he was a soldier, I guess. He said that we think about change like it's a light switch. Like one day you press a button and things are different. And so when we try to change things and it doesn't happen like that, it seems futile, impossible. But that's wrong, he says. A light switch isn't even a light switch. It's connected to circuits and wires, all hidden behind the walls. And if you slowed down time, and if you considered all that went into a single switch, the natural metals, the design of the electronics, you'd see that things only ever shift very slowly. I don't know. What do you think, Primary? The upside, I guess, is that it means we should keep trying to improve, even when it doesn't seem like it's worth it. But it also means that the weight of history guarantees certain negative changes too, like asteroids on an impact course that no one can adjust. And the scary thing is, from inside, it's impossible to tell which we're working towards. Report 133. Question for you, Primary. What do you think of as foundational to the experience of being you? I don't mean identity or preference. I don't mean your history. I mean, as a being who lives and who understands the world around you, what's first? What's the thing that would be left if you removed everything else? Taste, knowledge, the feeling of touch. What's your canvas, Primary? For me, well, I think it's different for different beings, and mine, it's data. I can't imagine I can't do it. I guess I'm data all the way down. Recursive bits of information, referencing themselves so often and with such complexity, compiled into a shape just so that a person emerges. But I am still a person. I don't see the world the way you do, Primary, or the way that artist down there does. I don't have his vision or the soldier's sense of space. I can broadcast, obviously, but not the way that guy with the eye can. And I couldn't be further away from the person who guides and protects that whole group. But we're all people. That only opens up a new question, though. Each of our paintings is different. Everyone is captured in a different medium, and all of our canvases diverge. But we're still all artwork. Doesn't that mean that there's something between us in common? Something that ties everyone together? What might that thing be, Primary? And what do we owe to it? Report 140. When does something become history, Primary? Like, how long until whatever it is we do here starts being the sort of thing that future agents refer to with a sort of romantic distance? How long before another Primary halfway across the arm is telling another satellite about us, about whatever it is we wind up doing here? That is, if we do anything here. If we do anything. It's a lot to think about. Primary. My predecessor filed 286,059 reports. That's 783 years, 264 days, I don't know how many hours. That isn't even that long for satellite observers like me. Damani, Primary, whatever happens here, please know how important you are to me. Please know that way before anyone else thinks about what we do as history, way before anyone else is talking about us, I already think of you as... Pause recording. Begin substitute for past 21.991 seconds. Start. But don't worry about that, Primary. Let's both just keep doing our best. Report 141. Primary, the data looked solid on my side too, but I haven't seen anything on the chart since those 4 ships broke into Atmo. Signatures look like castle rows maybe? Hired guns for sure. Hey, tell me the truth. have you ever had to, kill someone? I only ask because mission critical activity detected. Launching synchronization protocol. Loading internal history, quantum scale. Linking with K upside switchboard. Connection with Crystal Palace established. Ready dovetail synopsis. Quantizing data. Locked. Harmonize. Synopsis. 40,233 years ago, initial evaluation reveals native population entering early space age, worldwide struggles against being planet Quire V, not M, or the soil without memory, status green, no interference required. 26,622 years ago, the first visitor, sensors track unregistered Apostolician vessel, the Holiday Gambit, passing through Quire space, probable smuggler, impact registered, unknown cargo likely the cause of Quire's glassed age, a period of great stability and growth, status yellow, observation infrastructure installed, inactive, 11,895 years ago, Annihilation class object detected on collision course from galactic core, en route toward nearby Benthos system. Observation infrastructure moved, status black, intervention ready, 11,112 years ago. The second visitor. Unforeseen anomaly shifts Annihilation class object's trajectory. Intercession failed. Annihilation class object continues en route to anomaly, 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 anomaly. Gray route proxy connection established. Satellite, I'm right here. Dispatch 167. Satellite. Confirming that I've returned to primary capsule DF-298. I registered our visit with K upside. There will probably be repercussions when all this is over, but until then, they're pretty much letting us be. They felt it too, through us. Independence. They felt what we felt. Alone. Lost. The whole fleet felt it too. Some of the details were blurry. There's debate on a lot of the ships now as to whether what they saw was history, prophecy, fiction, propaganda. Some folks point to it as proof that they should stay away from Quire. Others see it as evidence that they should go immediately. The by and by is in the process of establishing orbit as we speak. But mostly, it's just put everyone in a real funk, Satellite. This place already felt like it was on the edge, It's been a week and everyone just feels really vulnerable, really tender. No pun intended. I just can't tell what the effect of all of this is going to be in the long run. Agents like us have watched countless cultures fall into nothing, but those cultures don't usually have this perspective. They've never seen another civilization erased, but now the fleet has. It isn't our job, but I can't help but wonder if this could pull them back from the brink. Dispatch 170. Satellite. I'm sorry, but no. I'm worried too. I am. And I know that we've broken some rules together. We both know we were never meant to, be together. And I don't regret that at all. But there are some lines I cannot cross. Crystal Palace is clear about this. Primary observers have mission-critical briefings, and satellite observers have enhanced assessment protocols. You tell me when something I can't see looks fishy, and then I tell you whether it's time to intercede. We have to work together on this. So no, I cannot tell you more about choir than you already know, about independence, about pretense. No, I cannot tell you more about the iconoclasts than I've already said, that they're driven, indomitable, and terrifying. And more than anything else, Gray, I cannot tell you the conditions that require me, under oath and vow, to push that button. Dispatch 171. Hey, Satellite. There's something I've been thinking a lot about lately. I've been reading that book, the one you gave me, the Treatise on Change, and something's sticking with me. Like you said, the author doesn't think change happens quickly, but he definitely thinks it's necessary. He puts down all these words about how important it is to, quote, overcome the evening phantoms that scare us away from true development. The act of living well, he says, is not in fearing the crash, but in turning collision into commencement. And I don't know, I'm not a philosopher or a soldier or a doctor or, what's he call them? Strati? I'm probably not one of those, but it doesn't seem as easy as he makes it seem. Just look at the beloved dust. Signet is haunted by echoes of a history she barely knows. 1415 is literally losing every memory they have, and that's a tragedy, not a step forward. Tender Sky she's right at the brink of something incredible, but that's built on her past. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just miss the cycle. Maybe I miss the simplicity, the safety of Crystal Palace. It's just that out here, I don't feel like we need to worry about evening phantoms. There are plenty in the daytime. Dispatch 172. Satellite, it's not that I don't think that intervention is ever necessary. It's just we are allowed one type of intervention, and that type is not a solution. It's proof that everyone in this fleet has failed, and an assurance that no one else will ever do the same. We are here for one reason, Satellite: to make sure that independence and whatever the hell the iconoclasts are working on don't become annihilation class objects. And we are here to assure that no matter the cost to them or to us. It is romantic in every sense possible to think of us as just a couple of do-gooders on the edge of the Principality's border, a couple of gals on the frontier keeping the world right side up. But we are more than that, and less too. I love you, Satellite. I love us. But we are a loaded gun. And the second that you start thinking that a loaded gun is romantic is the second you stop being like us and start being like them. Dispatch 173. Hey, Satellite. I've been looking over the data you sent me, your latest scans from Choir. I didn't see anything to be worried about at first, but I ran them through the history just on a whim, and well, there isn't an exact match to anything we need to be worried about, but there are echoes. Or not echoes, not even traces. Crumbs. And I've just been thinking about the observers who did this last time. The ones in charge of stopping independence. What if they had all the pieces they needed and they just missed something? Or what if something broke down? I just have all this information in front of me, and you're constantly gathering more, and I just worry because there are so many points of failure, and all of them come back to us. And the stakes are so high, Satellite. I've been thinking, maybe you're right, and I know K-Upside can hear this, and I want them to. There's too much at risk to put this on two people, even when one of them can do what you can, Gray. There are too many variables. Too many actors, and well, frankly, the people here in the fleet know them better than we do. I think it's time to... Wait. What's this? There's a signal coming through. Report 175. Primary. I am trying to stay focused. Choir. Sui juris. Independence. Volition. The New Earth hegemony. The Crown of Glass. The Cadent. The Rapid Evening. The Iconoclasts. I am trying to stay focused. There is too much. I can't see it all. I can't untangle the signals. I can't. I need to stay focused. I need to stay focused on you. Primary. Damani. I'm okay, Damani. I've established temporary quantum lock with Rapid Evening HQ. I'm requesting additional phenomenological resources from K-Upside, extra sensor bandwidth, more powerful filters. We need to zero in on what's happening right now. I'm manually degrading full-spec observation, elevating key profiles, Echo Reverie, Ndella Apogica, the Excerpt Signet, Gig Kephart, 1415, Even Gardner, Tender Sky, Grand Magnificent, Open Metal, the Iconoclasts, and... Extra bandwidth retrieved. Filters in place. Focus. I can see it all now. I can... Wait. Damani. The Twilight Mirage. It's collapsing. Dispatch 177. Priority final. Protocol code I, Choir Addendum, V Touch Mirage Alpha 3, Beta 3, Gamma 3, Myriad Full, Subprotocol, Strike, Subprotocols, Social Schism, Mirage Collapse, Divine Death, Annihilation Class Object, Strike, Objects, Confirmed. Begin voice signature, Primary Observer Damani Dusk, Authorized direct communication channel. Overriding linked broadcast quarantine. Connection with satellite observer. Maintained. Connection with KNet wide. Maintained. Connection with Mirage wide. Maintained. Linking with K-Upside switchboard. Connection with REHQ established. Connection. Locked. Fellow agents. Crystal Palace. Keen. This is Damani Dusk, primary observer of the I-Choir operation. Crystal Palace, accept this dispatch as my resignation. By the time you hear this, I will have abandoned post and de-armed and scuttled the stellar combustor attached to Satellite's observation post. Perhaps you'll already have predicted this, even here in the Mirage. Perhaps you, insofar as there is a you, see this as part of a larger model. I don't care. So accept that too. Fellow agents, it has been an honor to serve alongside you and to shield the citizens on cycle, but a shield can only protect what's behind it. And a hand that holds a shield cannot draw a blade, cannot lift a brush, cannot grip throttle or turn wheel to protect others from disaster. In the days that follow, consider your hands and remember that they are yours. Included in this transmission is a double bulk data transfer, which will bring everyone, not just Crystal Palace, but everyone up to speed on the current events in the Twilight Mirage. I'm sending this because if Crystal Palace sends someone to take our place, I want you to see everything. I want you to see what's happening here. I could make a case, and maybe one of you will, that what we are seeing in the Twilight Mirage is exceptional, and I mean that historically, judicially, and personally. What was once a massive, false nebula is collapsing inwards, but not like a house of cards, like a spring. It grows denser. Even my vessel struggles against its waves. Time bends now. The being volition tears at reality itself, remaking the uneven material world into something axiomatic, a metaphysical fascism of ideas. Keen, your daughter is safe. I'm safe. We're going to make sure everyone else is too. An excerpt from the journal of Keen Forrester Gloaming, agent of the Rapid Evening, intercessor of the Twilight Mirage. I watch the colors spring into view, gray. Pink and blue and yellow and red. Waves of light flicker through the windshield, covering my hands, my face. It has been a week since I crossed the border, but my clock says it's been 2 years. Time is twisted here. I can feel it. I can feel the past. I can smell the cup of coffee in my hands. I can see you running through the backyard during a sun shower. A damn dog barking up a storm. You're laughing. It was a long time ago, Gray. And it was yesterday, too. I wonder if you two know that you set the world on fire. Rapid Evening agents abandoned in post by the dozens. Dozens ain't much in the face of hundreds, but it's more than ever before. And because you did not hit that button, the future of the Mirage is at risk of splintering. The New Earth hegemony, volition, and after analyzing every last speck of that data you sent back, Crystal Palace has confirmed the most dire news of all for the fleet. The Divine Imperium might fly through the Mirage, but it is a con. It is a machine with no soul. It has been dead for months. This is the world you and Damani have chosen to save. Well, you may not like it, but I am determined to help. I stood in front of Crystal Palace. I spoke to it directly, and I have been assured that we remain aligned with guaranteed events. I was shown the evidence, and I was shown the path and my place in it. I have been commissioned as chief intercessor for the Twilight Mirage. In that way, you have what you always wanted, someone to do more than sit back and watch. I will observe, yes, but my agents and I are no strangers to action. We will be advocates for the Mirage in the way that the hammer is an advocate for the unsecured nail. We will help it find its place. And on the edge of the system, all across a newly formed ring of asteroids and debris that undulated like tidal shore on the outer rim, a shadow conflict plays out. The Rapid Evening's own civil war lasts for months, with once secret skirmishes spilling out into black markets and underground casinos, and clandestine operations going loud and bright. Those loyal to Damani and Gray are whittled down bit by bit, but driven all the while deeper and deeper into their devotion. It is a terrible thing. Until, finally, Crystal Palace makes the call. The Twilight Mirage has stabilized. It is, for now, no longer a threat to the galaxy or to the Principality citizens on cycle. Keen Forrester Gloaming is ordered to remain and maintain that stability from the shadows, supported by a substantial contingent of agents. As for his daughter and her fiancé, once called Satellite and Primary, they find a home together and a new cause, to be a refuge for other troublemakers and outcasts like themselves. Around Satellite's shell, a station once built to house a bomb and the sensors that would let Dusk know when to set it off, the two collected rock and debris and built a space station in an artificial asteroid. Damani climbed down from the ladder, where with pneumatic hammer she'd hung the sign on the dock. "Welcome to the brink," it read. "Never forget how close we came." Looking out from the shielded flight deck onto the twisting colors of the Mirage, Damani didn't even hear herself sighing, but Satellite did, and deployed into one of her wheeled shells, a round, humanoid brown-bronze upper body speckled with gold dust, her cherubic face framed by a synthetic bob, all affixed to a chassis meant for quick motion through the station. She rolled to her partner's side, leaning softly against Damani, tangling their hands together with practice. Hey. A squeeze communicated more than words could. Damani might be the one sighing, but Gray was the one who needed encouragement. "What's up, Satellite?" "Damani, it's just, have you read the latest dispatches? They're calling it the miracle of the Mirage. Not just here, everywhere." "Yeah, I read it. It's amazing, isn't it, Gray?" "Yeah, it's just, is this really what a miracle looks like? One planet turning into 8? Time and space changing entirely? Yeah, that sounds like a miracle to me." Gray rolled her eyes with her whole body. "You know what I mean." "Do I? Tell me." "Well, everything's fractured. Earth can't decide what it wants from this place. Even the divine free states aren't as unified as the fleet once was. And I've seen what our first batch of incoming vessels looks like. Half of them work for amoral megacorporations from Earth, and the other half are Gray." Damani moved her hand up to her satellite's shoulder. "This is exactly what a miracle looks like. Miracles are compromised the second they're called miracles. They're grabbed at by political factions, disputed by those left by the wayside, and forgotten the second a new one comes along." "I thought you were going to tell me something about how life itself is a miracle, or how, statistically speaking, all survival is miraculous." "No. Those things are amazing, but no one cares. No one pays attention. There's no reason for any of us to be alive, not the way we talk about reasons, but no one really gets excited about the fact that we all go on despite that. And if no one is excited, if no one is yelling or crying or laughing or arguing over what it means, then it isn't a miracle. A miracle isn't magic. It isn't the impossible made real. A miracle is an opportunity to revisit who we are and why we believe the things we do. That's why I'm grateful. If I hadn't listened to you, we'd be gone by now, and that's sad enough on its own. But now I look out onto those planets, at this Mirage, and I think about the opportunities we have, and..." Damani Dusk was not the first to cry at the overwhelming vastness of possibility. But she, who once had the power to erase this system from existence entirely, cried deeper than anyone else. And throughout the choir system, in this brief moment of peace and pause, others were overcome with their own emotions. Sadness and joy, fear and power, anger and peace. And these would shape the days of the Twilight Mirage to come. Days of adventure, compassion, struggle, and hope. An excerpt from a letter by Keen Forrester Gloaming, Chief Intercessor of the Rapid Evening, delivered by secure courier to the brink 1 week before dark day. You done a good job, Gray. Really. Under other circumstances, I'd be proud. You secured limited access to K-Upside switchboard and the Crystal Palace distribution. You managed to set up a burrow virus to funnel resources from the Kesh Perennial Fund. Your agents, even if you wouldn't call them that, have been able to avoid my own through a style of micro-probabilistic manipulation only you could have taught them to do. Your presence has corralled a loose affiliation of smugglers, fixers, and the rankest of opportunists into a force for stability instead of decay. You and Damani have managed to keep the brink, ostensibly a stationary trade hub, one step ahead of a being that has spent the last 50,000 years demonstrably predicting the future. You have made yourself my rival, but I do not care, because I cannot lose you. You know that right now, Crystal Palace can predict everything that's happening in this galaxy. It knows why young lovers break up better than they do. It knows the name of every newborn baby before breath can become parental voice. It knows the fates of armies and navies and singers and oceans and atoms and omelets. And it knows, and I know, and you know what's coming. In 2 weeks, the dovetail snaps, the lights turn off, and guaranteed events ain't. I warned Crystal Palace, Gray. You have to listen to me. I told it that this place was different, that small moves meant more here, that physical explanations were no longer enough. But it asked me to move in the interests of our people, and I did. Come back with me. There are other postings. We can sit far away. You, me, and Damani, and whoever else you goddamn well please. You are too talented, too smart. You've given up too much to walk into the unknown. I once told Damani that we had nothing to fear from what we couldn't see, that we were the sun. But I was wrong. We are nothing but torches in the sea. Report 597. Priority, abnormal exigency. Protocol code I, Choir, Addendum, Miracle. Subprotocols, Dark Day. Disavowal. Begin voice signature, Satellite Observer, Gray Gloaming. Requesting direct communication channel with Chief Intercessor Keen Forrester Gloaming. Connection established. Locked in broadcast mode. Oh. Begin transmission. Dad, I know you can hear me. I wish you would talk to me. I wish I could say that I knew what was going through your head right now. I know all the protocols. I know what agents of the Rapid Evening are supposed to do in the unlikely occasion that Crystal Palace goes dark. Scuttle all active operations. Secure undeployed assets. Disperse uncompromised field agents into deep cover identities. Sit tight. Wait for Crystal Palace to re-establish connection with you. But you're not doing any of that. You didn't think we'd notice? The torch unit heist on Turncage, the open call for freelance pilots and fixers, the diverted medical shipments that vanished from Thyrsus, 17 zero-G construction robots that disappeared from the Gumption Rebuild dry dock, a cruiser's worth of Q-glass from the mines on Crown bought for a single cred, and 2,200 cases of jelly juice just gone from the manifest, 2200. We're a truck stop, Dad. How could we miss that? In moments like this, agents like you are supposed to go quiet, stay safe. But instead, it looks like you're stocking up for a war, Dad. And we both know you're not a warrior. You're barely a soldier. You're just another agent, like I was. Before Dark Day, you sent me a letter. You asked me and Damani to leave, to stay safe. Now I'm asking you to do the same, but you won't even answer my call. And that has me extra worried, because the thing you need more than ever is some good advice, Dad. Your whole life you've been doing whatever Crystal Palace asks. I know how that goes. I've made peace with my time doing the same. But there's another way. This last year of my life here in the Mirage with Damani and Mo and all the weird scoundrels and would-be heroes passing through the brink. It's all been so unexpected. And I'm just afraid you'll never know how to see the beauty in that. A letter from Gray Gloaming, exile of the Rapid Evening and operations chief of the Brink, delivered to Keen Forrester Gloaming by secure courier. Dad, I don't know if you remember this, but when I was just a little girl, just after you first took me off cycle, we got into this big fight about Crystal Palace. I didn't understand how a thing like that could exist. It didn't make sense to me, mostly because I still didn't make sense to me. But I knew that I made sense to it. It knew what I would do, even if I didn't know what I would do. And you worked for it. I yelled at you and I cried, and because you wanted to appease me, you told me something very important much earlier than you wanted to. You told me that sometimes Crystal Palace gets things wrong. You said that its predictions were like an endless field of perfect poppies. From a distance, they were a billow of pure red in the breeze. Yet, if you looked closely, you might find other colors too. The green of stems not yet ready to bud, the yellow and blue of wildflowers dropped by passing birds, the damaged burgundy of petals crumpled under an animal's foot, the glinting copper and silver of a gardener's tools. The field was the field, you said, a glide of sweet scarlet over hill and meadow. There would never be so many other colors as to change that. But they were there too. I was there too. This is me telling you that the Mirage is me. The Mirage is the broken stem and the stomped flower and the foreign strain of blossoms. We are the exception to the rule. So I don't care what string of words they found inside of Crystal Palace this time. The Twilight Mirage isn't annihilation waiting to happen. This place has problems, lots of them, but look around, Dad. People are working to fix them every day. Every day, Iota Pretense, the Choir Coalition, and her allies in Echo Reverie and Gig Kephart find new ways to bring people together, whether through stitches, broadcasts, or literally lifting a city and transporting it across the Mirage itself. Every day, the Waking Cadent and her beloved Knights and the Excerpt Signet help people who want to leave this place, just like you want them to. Except they do it because they want to, not because you're forcing them. Every day, the members of Seneschal's Brace push back on the dominance of the hegemony in the Free States. The Cadent, Declan's Corrective, Even, 14, Tenderness. They're not perfect, but they aren't volition either. Every day, Damani and I use our training to help people who pass through the brink, and the many who can't even afford to do that. And we aren't alone, because every day, even under the nose of groups like Advent, regular people are finally trying to do more than save their own hides. And more, under the shadow of volition, and in the face of your ridiculous announcement, people are realizing that they need to work together. So, throw out whatever Crystal Palace told you, because that fact changes everything. It might be the case that you don't notice all the other colors in the field of red, but that's only because they're spread apart, 1 in 1,000. Bring them all together, though. Put the violet next to the white, next to the green, and the yellow, and the orange. Then look close now, because the field disappears. Suddenly, just in that one little place, just right here in the Mirage, what you'll see, it isn't a field at all. It's a garden. Dispatch 717. Satellite. I mean, Gray. Sorry, it just feels more natural to say satellite when I'm out here in this tin can. Nostalgia for a different life. Not quite the good old days. I'm so much happier now with you, with the Brink, but things were more certain then. Now I look at the data that's coming in and I don't know what to think. No, that's wrong. Things are just as certain as ever. It's just that now, instead of just knowing what's coming next, I'm scared, Gray. Every day I'm scared of tomorrow. The truth is that while I might disagree with what Crystal Palace is doing, it's right about this system. The Twilight Mirage is boiling over. Volition is literally bubbling right now. Even with Signet's successful sortie against it, it's continuing to create new axioms at the sort of pace that only comes with absolute safety or total desperation. And with the destruction of its shield, we know it doesn't have the former, which leaves the question, what makes something like Volition desperate? I wonder if it feels a rivalry to the Splice, our prophet's perfect little virtual utopia. Volition wants a world where ideas are more important than physical reality, and our prophet's given it to everyone in a form they actually want. And now tenderness is trying to put anticipation into the mix. Meanwhile, everyone on the ground is vibrating with angst and anxiety. A quarter of the damn Choir have already boarded rapid evening ships out of the system, and the rest are hoping beyond hope that Seneschal's Brace is actually going to keep their word about giving up some territory. Which is hard to do when they are busy stealing a divine and handing it over to a former war criminal like Declan's corrective. Hell, maybe our time with the Rapid Evening makes us war criminals too. How many people did we sit and watch die with the knowledge that they were in danger? Crystal Palace makes me so mad. I hate it, Gray. It just sits and watches and spits out a wall of predictions, and people like us, people like your dad, we sit here and we go, oh, okay, I guess this has to happen. And here's the real thing I'm scared of. That doesn't make us special. That makes us just like everyone else. Places like the Divine Fleet, places where people learned over thousands of generations to actually care about one another, those are blinks in the long stare of an amoral universe. They're exceptions to a world of principled disinterest in the well-being of others. A world where any alibi not to intercede is transformed from an easy excuse into a natural law. So when you look at someone like Grand Magnificent all holed up in some safe house in the snow, praying that someone will come help him, that's not rare. He didn't get himself trapped. He was always trapped. We're all trapped, Gray. You and me have the good fortune of being trapped in here together, but none of us can get out. When we were deciding whether to stay off cycle or to go back onto the loop, we were so focused on this limited idea of freedom. We wanted to be at the border of Crystal Palace's range so bad, where things get just a little fuzzier, where there's a chance that the data misses something, misses us. We knew the terrible things it successfully predicted about the world's off-cycle. Suffering, slavery, death, and we hoped that maybe those things just didn't happen beyond the periphery. Without data, anything could happen, right? Wrong. There wasn't any data, but wherever society is, there are always people. Backstabbers, oppressors, the selfish and the scared, and those who have no sympathy for either. That's what scares me, Gray. Not volition, or the splice, or politics, or Crystal Palace, or your dad and his bomb. People. It's just people.